Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Yesshift. This time it's another Steven's Vinyl Adventures episode. And I'm going to be talking about Close to the Edge, my vinyl copy of it. Now, I know that there's the Super Deluxe edition that just came out the other day. And this is not about that. I do not have that copy, although if you want to get one, it's in the link in the post. So yeah, that comes with live tracks from the Rainbow Theater, December 16th, 72. In fact, the other day, Yes released the audio of one more of those tracks. You know, they previously released Siberian True, and the other day, in conjunction with the new release, they put out And You and I. So it sounds different from the Yes Song's video version, and they say it's previously unreleased. So I guess that confirms that the video version was the 15th and this audio version was the 16th, a different night. And you get I gave it a listen. It does sound sonically different. And you also get John, in those final verses, he says, climb, beginning the verses with climb, climb, climb instead of climb, reach, climb. So you have like that going on, and it sounds great. It begins with a do 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 do. So yeah, it sounds really good, and I'm reading up on what people think about the new Super Deluxe edition. But anyhow, I'm talking about my vinyl copy of Close to the Edge that I've had for a little more than 12 years. I'll just show it up to the camera right here, the front first. So yeah, my brother got this for me as a Christmas gift, Christmas 2012, and it was my senior year of high school. And at the time I did not have a record player. I pretty much just had a CD player and would listen to music on YouTube as well. But it was a nice thing to have, and I've had it for so long that for a while I wasn't even sure if it would be playable, because moving to a couple different places, and it had been stored, even though it's stored indoors, there's hot weather, even if it's in a garage or something. So I've long had this paranoid fear that it would maybe be unlistenable because of the hot weather conditions. But I did give it a listen, and it sounds much better than I would have expected. There were very few pops, and there weren't really I was expecting like a lot of scratches and stuff like that, because maybe it's because of the age and also because of the weather conditions. I don't have that much experience in having vinyl for so long and listening to it. I think you get what I'm saying. I got my record player for the first time last year, and so I've gradually been going through different records, like new releases and I guess re-releases, and talking about them on here. But I also have a small backlog of a few Yes records I've had for several years, or in this case over a decade, and making my way through those. And with the new Close to the Edge re-release and everyone talking about that, it felt like the right time for me to get this one out and finally get around to listening to it. So the cover, it does show its wear of this copy, but it's not too bad, all things considered, and also show the back of it. You got the band member photos and Eddie Offord as well. I always thought it was cool that they added Eddie to the back of that, because he was such an integral part of that era of the band. And you got the Atlantic logo and the little glider symbol. Yeah, and I'm just reading the. Oh, okay. The text at the bottom is in the same sort of calligraphy. Well, I guess all the text on the back, the band members and all the production info, it's in the same calligraphy style that's on this thing on the inside. So I'll go ahead and open this. Of course, you get the Roger Dean close to the edge, the inner art. Yeah, and I'm like so used to, when I first got close to the edge, it was the 2000s Rhino remaster with the bonus tracks, and I always thought it was cool. Like you open it up and see that painting there, but it's cooler to see it in this size on the vinyl. And I'll go ahead and take this out. So this, it's called a sleeve, right? Or is it like a dust jacket? The thing you put the record in, I guess goes in the sleeve. Like, yeah. I always got those mixed up, but I like how it's this shade of green here. Like I said, the lyrics are written in this calligraphy style where it kind of looks like someone wrote them in pen, but of course that is print right there. But I like how that gives it a mythological style, if that makes sense. I think about like scenes from Lord of the Rings where you see characters writing in pen, and it gives it a more magical feel. Quite different from looking at how the lyrics are written in the CD version and how small that is. Now, I admit that some of the way that this calligraphy style can be a little difficult to read, perhaps even for a first timer, but since I know the lyrics well enough, I'm able to just, I know what the words are. But yeah, you got the I see Greg Clark chiming in. My favorite, yes, yeah, this album has really stood the test of time. It's considered one of the greats of prog rock. So, and you also got the Roger Dean style close to the edge up there, with the loops that are at the bottom of close and edge and the bubbly letters. And of course, you got the lyrics to And You and I and Siberian Khatru there. Yeah, I don't know how well that shows up on the video, but yeah, I'll go ahead and show you the record itself. And traditionally, as expected, this is black, but it's got the, green, white, red, Atlantic logo thing. And, oh, that's interesting. So on one side, the Atlantic, the thing in the middle is not aligned the same right side up as the other. It's kind of like one is 90 degrees the other way, if that makes sense. Linda says not well. I guess that's in reference to how the lyrics look. So yeah, it's kind of tough to, because of the camera and whatnot. But I mean, we all know the lyrics. Let's see, Kazmir Maslanka, is that how you pronounce her name? Says Close to the Edge and Relayer are my favorites. Yeah, I think I've mentioned on the show before that they're in my top 3. Tales from Topographic Oceans is my favorite, and Relayer is my second favorite, although for a while I think Relayer was my favorite for several years, and then I flipped back, and then Close to the Edge is my third favorite. But yeah, this okay, he says yes. So okay, yeah, I pronounced Kazmir's name correctly. So I gave this a listen almost a week ago. This specific record. You know, obviously I've listened to Close to the Edge for most of my life, you know. But this actual copy, I gave it a listen last week, and like I said, there were very few pops, and it sounded great. You know, just the atmosphere when you put it on and you hear the nature sounds, and it's like, okay, it feels like everything is right in the world. You know, putting this on, you know, it's like having a familiar friend over, and you know, it's going to be a great time, you know, time hanging out and just shooting the breeze, listening to Close to the Edge. And I mean, what else can be said about the album? You know, the vocal harmonies, the playing, the pace, it's phenomenal, you know, especially on the epic. And then on And You and I, I kind of forget that like the harmonica is not part of the studio version of And You and I, even though I have the studio version pretty much committed to memory. You know, it's a testament that the live version really, live versions, I should say, you know, really add a bit more meat and life to the song, I guess you could say. But the studio version, it does still sound really good, and studio versions of these songs really do have their charm. And Siberian Khatru has always been, you know, even though I really like it, it's always been my least favorite of this album, because it feels like going from Close to the Edge to And You and I, Siberian Khatru. It's kind of like a gradual de-escalation, even though all three tracks are really good. But somehow on this listen, I was really feeling Siberian Khatru even more than I would have expected. And, you know, just the drumming, the guitar, the bass, you know, all the instrumentation, you know, I was really paying more attention, more tuned in, I guess. And oddly, when the record finished, you know, when Siberian Khatru finished, I thought I heard a whisper at the end. So I, you know, moved the needle to hear the last bit again. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess I just imagined that maybe, or maybe there's something else I like moved in the room. But yeah, it was a really good experience finally getting around to listen to this vinyl copy that my brother gave me over 12 years ago. And I've got a couple other Yes records. I think he also gave me, I looked at them the other day. I think I have Drama, Tormato, and Going for the One. I'll have to check again. But yeah, I have those, and I have a couple other records that I've had for maybe non-Yes records. Definitely have something I've had for a couple years that I need to get around to talking to, and I have something that I ordered recently and came in last month that I need to talk about on here. But yeah, I'm really glad to own this and to finally get around to listening to it, and very curious to, you know, hear what y'all think of the super deluxe edition of Close to the Edge as well. Casimir is chiming in again, saying Bill Bruford is my favorite drummer as well. What I love about him is that he at times, his syncopation sounds like someone falling haphazard down a flight of stairs and then landing perfectly on his feet and jumping into a tight groove. Yeah, that's a fun way of putting it. Yeah. And also want to give a shout out to Miguel Bass. I know last week Dad and I did our Chris Squire birthday episode, and then it wasn't until after we did the episode I saw, oh, Miguel did something. He did like a Laird the Fish cover. So check that out over on Miguel Bass on YouTube, and he's on Facebook as well. And I also want to, you know, while I'm here, I want to mention Peter Banks. You know, the other day, Friday, was the 12th anniversary of when he passed away, you know, the original Yes guitarist. And so, you know, really want to pay respects to him. I saw that Bob Hager over on the Mabel Greer's Toy Shop YouTube channel, you know, he was a drummer. It's put up a 2-minute video of him talking about those early days, the Sin, Mapleker's Toy Shop, yes, those transitions. But yeah, without Peter, it might not have been called Yes. Yes was the name he came up with. John came up with Life. Chris came up with World. And we recently mentioned, I think in the middle of our Ronnie Siago interview the other day, Dad and I talked a little bit about Yesterdays during during the conversation, and thinking back to that album, I'm not sure that it's the best gateway to Peter Banks's playing. Like, you do have Looking Around and Survival from the first album, but you also have you do have Time into Words, Sweet Dreams, Astral Traveler, and Dear Father. And while you can definitely hear the instruments, depending on who you ask, the orchestra can kind of draw attention away from some of those things. Although I think on Astral Traveler, he definitely shines. And that was his favorite track of his that he played with Yes, that era. But yeah, I'm not really sure. Like, I don't know. Are there any tracks from the original Yes album that you think could have been on Yesterdays? Or was that track list all right? America, Looking Around, Time into Word, Sweet Dreams, Then, Survival, Astral Traveler, Dear Father. You could definitely hear Peter better on the bonus tracks of the original Yes debut album, on the early versions of Dear Father, and of course Something's Coming, or Beyond and Before, depending on which region you're in, I guess. The BBC recordings, that compilation. Dad and I talked about that a while ago. It really you can hear him better on that as well. And yeah, Peter Banks, I feel like, doesn't get enough credit for what he contributed to that music. Dad and I have talked about how listening to Peter's playing made it feel like, listening to Steve Howe's playing, it feels like the natural progression of the Yes sound. Like, they both felt right for Yes. And so, can't say enough great things about Peter. He really should be remembered very well when it comes to the prog rock guitarists that we think of. Casimir also says, I love South Side of the Sky. Yeah, that's a really good one. For a while, that was my favorite Fragile track, but I think in the last few years, or several years, time is really weird. It kind of switched to Heart of the Sunrise, because South Side of the Sky for so long was not played live up until they dusted it off for the 2002 tours onward, and so it felt like it had such a novelty to it. But I think now that they've played it live on plenty of tours since then, I kind of swung back to Heart of the Sunrise, and just the more, like, they're both mysterious sounding tracks, but there's something that feels like another step, if that makes sense, when it comes to Heart of the Sunrise. But yeah, I really love South Side of the Sky, and especially in the live setting when they do that dueling instruments thing at the end. And Casimir says that Bruford opening is classic. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it might have been cool to have heard, have gotten like a nice recording of Bill playing that in the live setting at some point. I don't know if ABWH would have done that, but that was also the era of the electronic drums. I know people have their opinions about those drums. Some might have preferred to hear that on different drums than those, but yeah. So I guess that's it for this episode of Steven's Vinyl Adventures. So like I said, there's not a whole lot of new things I can say about Close to the Edge that we haven't talked about on the show before, but just want to give y'all a nice little update that this is something I've had in my collection, and I've finally gotten the chance to enjoy it, and I'm glad that it works really well. So yeah, thanks for tuning in on Yesshift. You can follow us at Yesshift on Facebook and YouTube. Type in podcast app, you'll probably find us. And you can also write to us, yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know your feedback and suggestions. And on Friday, I think it's Friday, March 14th, Dad and I will be back. We're aiming to be back in the evening, like maybe 6 p.m. Pacific time, US time, to do a Billy Sherwood 60th birthday episode. And we're going to be talking about Circa. You know, we've talked to Johnny Bruns and more recently Ronnie Siago, and they were both in Circa, and got around to listening to And So On, which they were on, and so it just feels like it's the right time for us to finally do a Circa focused episode. And Billy Sherwood was very instrumental in putting that together. All the members, they have their parts. Don't want to minimize any of that, but Billy has also done the behind the scenes stuff on that. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting episode there. So thanks for tuning in, everyone, and see you all soon.